Welcome back. Today, we are going to crack the code on persuasive writing. You know, how to take all those complex thoughts swirling around in your head and turn them into powerful, clear, and structured arguments that actually convince people. So, you've got the ideas, you've done the research, but when you sit down to write, it just feels like you're trying to build a house without a blueprint, right? We have all been there, just staring at that blank page, wondering how in the world to organize it all. Well, that feeling, it ends today. You see, the secret weapon to a really powerful, memorable argument isn't just some killer fact or one brilliant idea. It's the structure. A solid framework is what gives your words their power and what guides your reader from your very first sentence right to your final undeniable point. All right, so here's our game plan. First, we'll break down the basic anatomy of an argument. Then we're going to master two really powerful frameworks, the outweigh and the positive or negative. After that, we'll get into crafting the perfect conclusion, and then finally, we'll put it all together in your own personal persuasion toolkit. First up, let's look at the basic anatomy. It turns out that most argumentative prompts you'll ever face, they really just boil down to one of two fundamental types. And you know what? Just knowing which one you're dealing with, that's the first huge step to victory. And here they are. It really comes down to two kinds of questions. On the one hand, you've got this classic balancing act. Do the pros outweigh the cons? And on the other hand, it's a judgment call. Is this thing, this trend, fundamentally a good thing or a bad thing? Figuring out which question is being asked is honestly half the battle. Okay, so let's tackle that first type with what I call the outweigh framework. This is your absolute go-to strategy for any question that asks, do the advantages outweigh the disadvantages? It's a classic for a reason, and we're about to make it your superpower. The beauty of this outweigh structure is its really elegant three-step logic. First, you plant your flag in the introduction. No ambiguity, you just state your case. Then, and this is the clever part, you show how fair-minded you are by discussing the weaker side. And then finally, you pivot and deliver that powerful main argument that proves your point. The key here is to be super direct, right from the get-go. A sentence just like this one is perfect for your introduction. See how it acknowledges nuance? You're saying, hey, there are benefits, but it leaves absolutely zero doubt about your final position. The reader knows exactly where you stand. Now, in your first body paragraph, you build so much credibility with this one simple word, admittedly. Here's the psychology behind it. By fairly presenting the other side's points, you kind of disarm the reader. You're showing them you're not just some biased fanatic. You've looked at all the angles. And that makes your own argument seem way more reasonable and a whole lot harder to dismiss. Okay, now for maybe the most important turn in the whole essay. That word, however, that's your pivot. This is the sentence that signals the shift. It says, okay, I've given the other side its due, but now I'm about to show you why my side of the argument is the one that really matters. All right, let's move on to that second type of prompt. This is the one that asks for your judgment. You know, like, is an aging population a positive or a negative development? When you get a question like this, you've actually got a strategic choice to make. So you can take a balanced approach, which feels a lot like that outweigh framework we just talked about. You know, acknowledge one side before you champion the other. Or if you feel really strongly about it, you can go for the 100% one-sided approach and just build an unwavering case from start to finish. If you do decide to go all in with the one-sided argument, the structure is incredibly direct and really powerful. You just state your case, and then you support it with two totally distinct pillars of reasoning. For example, you could talk about the economic reasons in one paragraph, and then the social reasons in the next. Layering it like that makes your argument feel really comprehensive and robust. It just screams expertise. Yeah, with the one-sided essay, your introduction is pure confidence. There's no room for while or although here. You use these direct, punchy phrases to establish your authority immediately. You're not just reporting facts. You are the expert making a definitive judgment. Then your body paragraphs can just launch right into your evidence, like, economically, this trend is detrimental. And then, socially, the consequences are equally concerning. It's just a relentless, forward-moving argument. So every strong argument needs a powerful ending, right? The conclusion. This isn't just about wrapping things up. It's your last chance to drive that point home and leave a really lasting impression. A great conclusion does four things, and it does them beautifully. First, it signals the end. Then, it briefly recaps your key points. Let's say points A and B for the other side, and C and D for your main argument. And then, most importantly, it restates your main idea, your thesis, with a new sense of confidence. And here it is, a perfect template for a conclusion in a balanced or outweigh essay. You notice how it kind of mirrors the introduction, but it just feels stronger, more earned. It elegantly pulls together your key ideas, A, B, C, and D, while powerfully reinforcing your main position one last time. It's so effective. Okay, we have covered a lot of ground, so let's boil all of that down into a simple, powerful toolkit that you can literally use for your very next piece of persuasive writing. Here it is, your essential toolkit. It's simple. First, diagnose the prompt. Is it a weighing act or a judgment call? Second, for those balanced arguments, use that powerful, admittedly, however, pivot. Third, don't be afraid to take a really confident, one-sided stance when you need to. And finally, always, always, always stick the landing with a strong conclusion that summarizes and reaffirms. So, there you have it. These are the architectural blueprints for building an argument that doesn't just state a point, it proves it. With these structures in your toolkit, you're not just a writer anymore, you're an architect of ideas. So the only question left is, what powerful argument are you going to build next?